A very warm to everyone who has joined the room. Really, really nice to see everyone here. Really happy to be joined by Ross. Those of you that have come to a few of our webinars before, really, really nice to have you back. Thank you for coming, and obviously really grateful for Ross for joining us on this one, where we get to talk about bits and pieces going forward. So just on the messages as ever, colleagues. Hi Lisa, hi Anne-Marie, hi Stacey, hi Mark. Just on the messages as ever, colleagues. Just let us know you can hear us and see us. Hi Nikita, lovely to have you with us. Just let us know that you can hear and see us, and then obviously we can get going. Hi Rahana, hi Laura, hi Rachel, hi Maria. Brilliant. And so that's what I was saying, Ross. It's a 30-second delay, so you'll see all the stuff come in and come through.
Everyone leaving comments. So yeah, it's good to join in and share some insights, and hope everyone's well. Everyone's going through the same kind of episodes with lockdown, aren't we? So it's about looking after each other.
Yeah, very much so. And obviously people like you as well, giving your time to things like this, it really makes a difference because of insight. So colleagues, please do get any questions or messages or anything come through on anything. If you've been with us before, you know that my great friend and colleague Blair Robertson is with us. So he's going to be with you on the message board throughout. So he'll be marking stuff up for us to look back on, etc. when we come away from the message boards. But please feel free to comment at any point, and we'll look forward to doing that. So Ross, we really wanted to get you on here as well, just to think about teacher training and how teachers look. And obviously we've been doing several webinars, we'll be doing it with other people. But one of the things that's always interested me about what you do is, first of all, you wear your heart on your sleeve. You know, you say what it is and you put it out there. And then some of the instances that you put up online, it also shows that I think teachers confide in you. You know, teachers tell you how they're feeling, they tell you what's going on, and they share those different experiences. So I was just going to, talk around teacher training and some of your ideas and thoughts, but also get a handle on what are people saying to you? What do people feel is going to happen in teacher training? Aside from your own thoughts, which we'll come to, what do you think people are interested in at the moment with schools and teacher training?
Specifically teacher training. Well, I think we've all shifted to online, and I do think that's going to be pretty much the default for most. My key thought is that a lot of schools are going to have to consider rebooting their school culture with kids and with staff, and whether they all have them back together or not seems to be the key fundamental message that I'm receiving, as well as the mechanics of just general teaching and learning, looking after your trainee teachers, those types of things, which we can all pretty much do. And there'll be a need for one or two people out there that want to buy in a bit of external voice, or we've all got bits of software such as guided learning and other kind of companies that we sign up to where they can offer webinars and people could tune in and get other bits of tips and tricks and things like that. And I think that will always be needed prior to, before lockdown, but more importantly, post the virus. And I think, now we're all kind of adapting to working online. A lot of us have upskilled ourselves. Often in my experiences, ICT training is often the lowest priority. And often it's a new bit of software, there's a bit of training. If you miss it, your mates will tell you how to use it and those types of things. So I suspect it's still a challenge for many people. I've got a great new device here on my table, which I've been playing with last 2 or 3 weeks just to upskill my own kind of training needs. But I think the physical stuff's going to be pretty limited for a while. And, without getting into the details of all the virus and the vaccines and things like that, I think until that's solved, I think this will be the way that we're working for well into 2021.
I think it's really interesting what you say as well, where people have actually got the different areas where they need to upskill, because there's the soft part where you learn to use the technology, and the part where you're actually touching stuff and clicking on things and using new software. And it's really interesting to talk about what you said, the culture and rebooting culture, because that's something that schools sometimes don't have in the first place. You kind of have a collegiate body of people in the same building heading to the same goal, but they're never really on the same page. Do you think that people will be able to have a digital culture as well as and synchronize with their face-to-face culture that's going on in school?
So good question. I can see in the comments, I'm sure someone's keeping an eye on it. Everyone's saying things are frozen. So I'm going to try and close. I don't know if it's me or you, Leon, but I'll try and close some things down my side. so the 200, but prior to lockdown, my last school was in Belfast that I was working with March 16th. So I'm not counting, but it's a good 115 days now at home. And I've managed to do webinars to about 4,000 teachers in 60 countries in my own sessions, but obviously working with schools specifically. But what I'd learned before lockdown on my visits was that happier schools tend to be more collaborative, and there's a lot of things that will be put in place to make that happen. So I've got one or two slides that I can show people if you want. In fact, if I should put one slide on the screen first of all. So let me just figure out how to use this software. Here we go.
That 5-minute tutorial I gave you was brilliant, wasn't it?
You can probably hear my border collie barking in the background. So this screen best sums up what I've seen on my travels. So I'll give it just a second to load up. And it's really hard to stay in the middle, but this is what I think I've seen in happier, higher performing schools. And you could probably get some higher performing schools on the left, but it's a question is, do you want to work in that school where you're told to mark this way and you will do this once a week? And this external pressures is parents want, government want, Ofsted is coming, those types of things. So the schools where I've seen that autonomy culture is when they're meeting on a regular basis. And I've done a lot of reading on cognitive science and memory for a number of years, but quite a lot last 3 months, given that I've got a bit more time to kind of read and write. And what I now know more about paying attention, cognitive load theory, I would say optimum time for teacher training sessions is about 20-30 minutes, which I think is the right time of this webinar session. So that's good for everyone's cognitive load. But I think going back into schools, I will probably be delivering my own sessions in 20-30 minute chunks, even if it's a whole day teacher training session. And where I've seen that middle column evolve in schools and colleges is staff meeting together on a kind of weekly or a fortnightly basis, rather than your bog standard 1 day 4 or 5 times an academic year. So a lot more schools are moving to regular, small and regular, little and often processes to allow their teachers to come together to talk about teaching and learning. So I guess that slide sums up what I've seen, if that offers a bit of help for people.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because obviously from your point of as well, you get to go out and meet the schools in face-to-face sense. We've been doing, we work with about 450 schools across the world, and we really only deal with them in a digital sense. We don't work with them face-to-face, and it's really interesting to hear what you talk about the chunking of time in the 20-30 minutes. We've been running this for years now, and we know that teachers will, on average, and a very heavy average, they will go to 18.5 minutes. So like 18 minutes, 36 seconds to be exact.
Right.
And that seems to be where they've watched a couple of chunks of videos, they watch what they do, and then they come away, and then they're really happy with looking at it in that sense. But I think the culture and the way that you can kind of frame the training online is actually a lot easier than it is face-to-face, because face-to-face,
you've been guided learning for a number of years now, haven't you?
Yeah. We've been lucky enough to be doing that for a while, and obviously we've got your course coming up soon.
Yeah, so I'll talk about that in a minute. But I've been doing webinars, teacher training for 9 years actually, and done about 60 in the last 3 months. And I've done a lot of reading and research on collaborative remote learning, online teaching. The engagement matters, how, the resources, the whiteboard, the tools that you use, the use of screen sharing. I guess the research I've read is the quality of teaching matters. So I guess, knowing what I know about sharing Mark Plan Teach with guided learning platform is, that quizzing, that retrieval practice, the kind of following a sequence to, I guess it's a kind of curriculum schema, is the following that plan supports learning and retention. And I think how this has evolved, at least through the webinar space and platforms such as yours, gives me a lot of food for thought. And I hope a lot of school leaders watching also, that how they then teach or deliver online teaching to their kids might give us a lot of time. And I know people are being incredibly busy and high emotions and anxiety and exhaustion. But where we've had time to kind of read and reflect on the way that we teach and deliver online teaching has given us a lot of food for thought, at least I can see from people I connect with.
Do you think people have changed the way they're going to learn and train online then? Like, forget that we've moved online. In the 9 years you say you've been doing this, do you think we've had to change the way that we actually deliver and respond online as well?
Yeah, and I think it's important to change. Any industry, not just education, it's important to evolve. I think of the stuff that I wrote many years ago on my blog that I die with a bit of embarrassment. But on the same flip of the coin, there are other things that are timeless, such as the hallmarks of effective feedback, good instruction in the classroom, those types of things. How they're delivered online is another challenge. And again, going back to my point that ICT training is often the lowest priority in schools. Not everywhere, but often, and often it's a one size fits all, or you might have a beginners or an advanced kind of workshop type thing. And if you miss it, does your school induction process mop up part-time people that are absent so they can get up to speed? And I think that's with any teacher training, never mind online technology or ICT tools in schools.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. We've seen a very marked shift away from what people thought would work to what actually producing engagement. So people thought that a lot of the online teacher training or the online staff training, especially from companies, was all going to be about personalization, making your avatar, making your journey, putting it that way. But what we're seeing come through is actually people want to be connected, like you were saying earlier, to other colleagues, to workspaces, to a common collective, a common ideal. And we're reacting that to shape software towards it. But I think in the next step, it's going to be about schools taking the whole control of how they shape and how they deliver the training in a different way. Because simply putting something up for someone to watch, or even a webinar, is only going to kind of hit one node with people. It's not training, it's delivery. What do you think to that?
Yeah, no, one size fits all fits one person. It doesn't fit everyone. And it's really important. It's the challenge, in my life as a school leader for professional development, working with 250 staff, to just know everybody's name, never mind what's going on in their personal life, and then what they need professionally, was a non-stop job. And it's not a job for one school leader either. And there's the challenge for all of us. So, I don't need to tell everyone that classrooms are very complex places, as are large school college organizations. But the high performing schools that I've worked in invest a lot of time in getting to know individuals. In fact, I interviewed a professor from Harvard 3 or 4 months ago. She is known for a school called the Alliance Way in Milwaukee, and she's just completed a research on it's the first bully-free school in America. And in fact, I've got the book on my shelf. I might try and grab it in a moment. And what she said, something that's resonated with me ever since. When people don't take time to know one another, there is more opportunity to do harm. And that's exactly how bullying manifests itself. Online, with the safeguarding aspect, we now have a world where online bullying outweighs physical bullying. And if we just bring it back to teacher training and online, schools getting to know their individuals, when teachers have time with a coach or with someone that's giving them a good bit of feedback, one-to-one conversations, sitting down, 20 minutes free from any school bells ringing, any deadlines, they're happier people. They're more invested in the school. They're more likely to stay. They're more likely to be engaged and motivated with their work. All obvious kind of simple human attributes.
Yeah, the communal part of online is, I think, at a very early stage, and I say that for social media as much as I say it for teacher training. But I think the online world is a really, really nice avenue for video. I don't want to say observation, but video reflection. People filming themselves in their training and then using the technology to develop that way. I think that's going to be the biggest change, because people like you, people like me, might have been doing webinars a long time, making YouTube videos for a long time. But the amount of people who've just had to jump that bridge and start using FaceTime, Zoom, Google Meets, and are willing to be seen, I think that's the biggest change that's going to come after COVID. I don't think people, to be really interested to see what people see in the comments, chat for a while, I don't think people will mind being filmed. and then having the community, as you say, watch their film.
I think we should respect that it's not for everyone. Plus, if we're at home, I've got my 9-year-old son next door, my border collie barking downstairs when anyone walks past the door. So we've got environmental circumstances to consider. A lot of teachers working at home online will have young children to try and balance at home also. And plus, putting your face in front of a camera, for me on Twitter, I've been doing it for 12 years, so it's become pretty normal for me now. And I've had to navigate all the kind of online trolling, safeguarding aspects. But, for a lot of schools out there, I'm talking specifically about English state schools, for example, who have limited resources. And, all schools work with vulnerable children. You've got children on the other side of the screen who may not have that kind of cultural capital or knowledge or secure environment in order to control the technology. So schools and teachers place themselves at risk. So I think there's also an importance for us all to be aware of the difference between synchronous and asynchronous video content, and the stuff in your background environments, what people can use with the videos, using secure hyperlinks, those types of things where only specified email addresses can log into the account, and all those sorts of things will be an important factor for everyone watching in terms of safeguarding teachers as well as the students.
Yeah, that's one of the things to deal with, is like, well, what do you do about feeding the kids? Because we do remote observation all the time, and it's always really down to the school how they want to deal with it. But as everyone moves online, and obviously like with a lot of universities offering lessons and sessions, online exclusively next year, it will be exactly the same for people going in training. To work with someone going to do a PGCE and then going into a school and then filming themselves when we know that PGCE student leave that school, it opens up something very, very, very different to what we've had before.
Yeah, and I think obviously the online technology and stuff. There's some great blogs that I found. I'll put my slides back on. There's I'll share some of the research that I was already conducting before kind of lockdown, and also stuff through my website. So for people that don't know me, I've been blogging as a teacher for a long time, just gone past 12.5 million readers. So I was just kind of share an initial bit of data with you all, plus the things that I've been seeing, on my Twitter profile. If I just put that up, throughout lockdown, my statistics went through the roof. So nearly 250,000 followers, and pretty much on average, it's gone down a little bit because July people are starting to log off. But pretty much, if I just pop back to kind of March and April, about 10 million people were seeing my tweets every month. And it's not that I have all the answers. It's just, I guess I drive a lot of the traffic and sources. And my focus for my doctoral studies at Cambridge is looking at online teacher. I say the word behaviors, but I mean that in terms of topics and content. So behind the scenes, just to give everyone a kind of macro lens view of the issues facing teachers across the UK. The number one click on my website for many, many years has been marking. Then the second greatest click is differentiation, and that's often the myths of differentiation. When I look specifically at school leaders, it's difficult conversations, so supporting, challenging people in your teams. And when I work with school leaders, often it's safeguarding parents and paperwork, which is the number one reason. I won't play this. This is a live kind of slideshow where I normally poll someone, but you can see the word. In fact, it's going to load up now. But marking comes up, and I've used this particular slide with 25,000 teachers face-to-face in 200 schools, 15 countries. Marking drives teachers crazy in every type of school all around the world. And I've often said that we need to do what we can to reduce that burden on teachers. How that manifests itself post-lockdown is really interesting. For people watching outside of England, this is the teacher workforce survey, which compares teacher workload between these 3 years. I got really interested in this in 2011 when it started to get published. You can see here the 5 biggest shifts in the bottom right-hand corner that schools have had to look at in terms of reforming their policies. And I think it's important that schools constantly look at their policies, because you have moving populations, moving teacher populations as well as students. But really interesting, if we look here, the dark blue and the light blue, we've looked at our feedback policy. 23% said it got better, but 25% said it made things worse for the teachers. The teachers said this, worse for data and much worse for behavior. And I think these were happening normally, but I do see now, post-lockdown, given that kids have missed a large number of schooling, that we need to reshape our curriculum content. I've been a bit disappointed to see large multi-academy trusts claim that the stripping back a lot of the creative subjects just to kind of promote more core subjects. And I think if we generally believe in research about memory and schema and episodic and semantic experiences, schools have to work really hard to give that creative experience for kids in the curriculum. The challenge is, as ever, is exams and assessment, how schools will be held to account post-lockdown when Ofsted and DFE league tables start up again. These are just 10 schools very quickly that I've visited. They're not the best schools in the world. I believe all schools are good. All schools want to be improve. There are 10 very different types of schools, and they feature in my new work, Just Great Teaching. These are the schools on the left. You might recognize one or two where you are. These are the issues on the right that all schools face. And what I did with the schools, with the head teacher, we identified the key area they thought they were doing really well at before the pandemic. And this research was all published in September 2019. When I surveyed the head teachers, so I collected 10,000 bits of data, they said they're really strong at managing kids' mental health, curriculum, teaching and learning. Where they lacked confidence or found things challenging was managing teacher well-being as well as pupils' mental health with reduced budgets, more complex needs in the classroom, and also the issue of research. Where is it? Can I trust it? How can I access it? There's too much. I can't filter it. It doesn't tell me what to do. And that was the same in terms of research for teachers. The teachers, 10,000 bits of data, teaching and learning plan is their greatest strength, but where they struggled was managing their own well-being. I was looking actually earlier, the Education Support Partnership here in England surveys on an annual basis teacher workload and teacher mental health. And I think the data was 70% of teachers struggle with their own mental health. And school leaders, I think the number went up to about 80%. And you can see the two other bigger issues there. More kids in the classroom, more complex needs, reduced funding, lack of kind of specialist support. That places a burden on teachers. And then I go back to that slide as what I've seen in all the schools I've been visiting. And, I didn't mention the stuff that was happening on the right, where Ross is the experienced teacher. He closes his classroom door. He doesn't want to be observed. He doesn't want to take part in CPD. He doesn't want to share anything. And he's lost his teacher mojo, I would call it. Teaching's a team sport. It's really important that experienced teachers share solutions to complex classroom problems, and that schools and school leaders create the culture in which all teachers can grow professionally and are supported. And I guess external accountability often is the driver, which often reduces teacher autonomy, which is a focus for my research. I'll finish with this slide. This is what I see schools doing really well in terms of shaping their CPD. So on my website, I've just published a CPD menu, making CPD transparent. All teachers know what's available to them. And then this kind of 9-stage process, which will take anything between a year to 2 or 3 years to transform culture, where it's not always Ross showing off his best lessons, but Ross comes and shows off on a 3-minute video clip. And I think you can do this remotely. Here is me teaching your kids, but here I am struggling. Can you help me solve this? And it's all captured, and it's all 20, 30-minute sessions, no more. And it allows all teachers to share and question ideas to collaboratively, that collective teacher efficacy to be better in their school. So I hope that gives quite a few ideas for people and a bit of food for thought.
Yeah, no, that's great. And obviously with the 9-part plan that you put in towards the end there, obviously a lot of that mirrors and maps to what our training sessions is. What are you looking forward to when we put your course out on the guide platform, which hopefully, depending on your audio recording ability, will be with us soon?
Get all those done. Well, I've lived Mark Plan Teach personally for 6 years, and then I've lived it for 3 years in schools all around the world. And what I've discovered is that, just goes back to my point earlier, that good quality teaching and learning stands the test of time, and it often can work in most classrooms. I guess where teaching becomes quite nuanced is that, I'm a secondary design and technology teacher by trade. What I do with 16-year-olds will not work with 4-year-olds. So it's really important that as we develop our teacher experience and wisdom, that we can then use any research findings and translate it back into our classroom. And schools must give teachers that time to research. And I get it, it's incredibly tough when you have a mountain of to-do lists and things to do. And, you know, that's just one child, never mind 30. But I'm looking forward to the Mark Plan Teach going online in terms of that curriculum schema that you would follow, and that knowing what I know about retrieval. So I've got a couple more slides to show everyone. What the research says about effective teaching practice, what the research says about retrieval. And for me, it's the #1 thing all teachers should do. And I think more teachers need to know about memory. I wish I'd learned that as an NQT back in the 90s. And I think it can be delivered online. So I'm hoping that the Mark Plan Teach will support a lot of people's thinking, a lot of people's work to reduce the workload and improve effectiveness, and also support school culture.
Brilliant. Yeah, well, we really look forward to having it out there, and obviously you're going to decide the mechanism of how it goes out, but the steps that you're talking about along the way in terms of how they'll combine, how they'll actually, you know, be assessed, and having it there for the long term will be really, really key. I think it'd be good now, Ross, if it's all the same with you, just maybe just give a minute. Obviously we'll chat amongst ourselves, just if colleagues have any questions, and we'll just zip back through the line, just see if we just take one each to comment on. How does that sound with you?
Yeah, can I share 3 or 4 slides very quickly?
Yeah, of course.
This is based on what I think, you know, looking at my social media work. This is what I think where most teachers are at the moment, I would say internationally. This is from a great book called Connect the Dots by Tricia Taylor. Can you see that, Leon?
Yeah, just share the screen, buddy.
I'm just making sure I pressed the screen sharing button. I didn't know. There you go. All right, here it is coming now. So this slide here is 10 evidence-informed teaching and learning strategies, all supported by research. When it loads on your screen, you'll see a couple in green. These have the highest impact. The ones in orange are medium. The ones in yellow are the lowest. But that's not to say they don't have an impact. They do. So a lot of people are looking at retrieval, spaced and interleaving. To give you reassurance, retrieval teachers call that revision. This is just a cognitive science term. So these are the things that you've always been doing. Couple of other things. The retrieval practice, you know, it's quizzing. It's to support long-term retention. A simple tip is, rather than ask kids what they learned today, increase the desirable difficulty and say, what did you learn yesterday? And that forces them to recall information from their long-term memory, and it helps embed that knowledge. So that's a simple fix there. I've read a lot about memory. This is easily an hour just in itself, this slide, but I think we need to help our teachers be aware of how the memory domains work. Short term is all the stuff I'm presenting to you. If I ask you what was on that slide before, that's working memory. If I remind you tomorrow and ask you to say it out aloud or write it down, that's me using retrieval to quiz. It's really important that retrieval is not...
so important. Just to jump in on something, sorry for that, Robert. This slide is so important because one of the things that technology does to us, especially when we move online, especially when we use video, is it actually reduces our working memory and our working capacity, etc. There's a thing we used to have called Miller's magic number, where we used to hold 5 to 7 chunks down to maybe 3 in some people. So it's really...
I keep hearing between 4 and 8 pieces of information, and we can only pay attention to the information just shared for 15 to 30 seconds. So I'm conscious that everything I'm trying to squeeze in here, much of it is being lost. So I'm hoping the video is recorded and that people can watch it back.
Well, we will put a link to that, colleague.
This is just a schematic model. So I think people looking at the curriculums and thinking about how it's going to be reshaped, given that kids have missed a few months of content, and how we can go back to the kind of core essentials, considering the environment, kids getting back into school, having to reteach habit, having to reboot culture, and then looking at our curriculum models where we encode, get information in, help them store it, transfer to long-term memory through retrieval exercise quizzes. I won't go through all this, but you can kind of see all the different areas of long-term memory and how it manifests itself. And then I'll just finish with this: 7 principles of good feedback. Lots of research I'm unpicking. You know, number 1, here's a good example. I can do it online, watch me with the whiteboard or a video annotation, or I do it physically in the classroom. I scaffold feedback as well as self and peer assessment, and I then find the interventions, number 6, close the gap in the lesson where kids are starting from, where they need to get to, and then number 7 is that loop to help me reteach next lesson based on the data that I collect. And that's verbal, visual, non-verbal data, the feedback taking place in the classroom. So I'll leave it there. There's lots there for people to consider.
Yeah, you're a gentleman. Thank you so much, buddy. Really, really appreciate it. So, colleagues, obviously, we're going to, as we said, we're going to end soon, but just give a couple of minutes. Please just throw any comments, questions, suggestions. Obviously, Ross and I would love to know what you think, or you know, what you've taken from the session, or any questions you have. So we'll hang about for a few minutes on that. And I know there's a delay, so we'll wait a little while till they come.
I see one question from someone. Of course, I'll share the slides. Much of this is already on my website and in my books and things. I guess the question from me, Leon, you know, using guided learning more and put my content on there is how do schools, I mean, maybe people know this already who participate, but I'd like to know, how do schools or school leaders use your platform? What insights and data do you have that you could offer me for my own kind of knowledge of what's going on in the sector?
Yeah, I guess the thing that the teachers seem to like about it is the speed and ability. So when we're watching what teachers do, and we have about 15,000 videos viewed a day from different teachers who are on paid training courses, the repeat is always a factor. And just looking, you know, how much farther they go back. Do they go back 20 seconds? Do they go back 40 seconds? I think that, you know, if you're in the face-to-face experience, there's so many things you miss. And you want to say, what was that again? Or could you just elaborate? Or could you did it? But because we just move at a pace, we miss it. So that's a key thing. The repeatability shocks me how many people will go back a little bit and a little bit. And for leaders, I think the key thing has been aside from all the benefits of the system, and I've used most is what I would say is the scheduling tool. So they actually all everyone study that way. But the thing that I think teachers like most is they've kind of used video learning as a kind of treat or a reward against having inset and twilight. Right. And that's like a lot of people actually just say that's the best. Forget all the good things about it. That's the best. You don't have to be here anymore. And teachers value, because teachers value their time so much. Just to have that afternoon back where you don't have to do the 2-hour session, or to have an inset day where you can go to your classroom and do the rest. As you said earlier, because of the 20-minute chunking, I think that's what the senior leaders comment on most. The second to that, I'd say the flexibility. The fact that you can just, you know, use our training or make your own training and forward is really, really key. And obviously we get to share like stuff that you're making, and we've got courses from Mark Anderson and Pete Atherton and now John Hattie. We've got a John Hattie course coming up as well. So yeah, there's lots of to be able to share the best practice. So even what you've said now, we could take the recording of this session, put it straight onto the system, and it would be a part of the course.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm picking for my doctorate at Cambridge is I'm looking at teacher autonomy, and particularly in England, people will be surprised to hear this, but when we compare England's autonomy to 48 other OECD countries, teachers in England have one of the lowest. And often, you know, as school leaders, particularly through before lockdown, school leaders' perceptions were of the year ahead for curriculum. Teachers was often just to get me to Friday only. And I think the challenge for us all is we've had to have plan A, plan B, and plan C. And disadvantaged kids at home, remote learning at home, vulnerable kids in school. So the workload's gone through the roof for many, many people. But yeah, like going back to your point, teachers value time more than anything else. And I think we can chuck as many ideas that we want to teachers, but they need the tools that help transform their practice. And that comes through, you know, modeling in teacher training sessions, platforms such as yourself, where teachers can learn and see and repeat and retrieve, you know, really following and modeling what research says about learning and metacognition. It works for ourselves, funny enough, our paying attention span is about 20-30 minutes, and we're pushing 35 minutes now. So let's take some questions from people.
Brilliant. So I'll look at the first one from Sarah. If you have put it, please, if you can just note a Q next to it with Mark as a question, it will just help us get there quicker. So quick question: thoughts on safeguarding of staff where students can edit videos, etc. Putting deep fakes, I suppose, putting items on YouTube, kind of melding clips. Do you want that one, or shall I go for it?
Well, you know, for me, my first, you know, if you know where the video, you can lock, you stick a video on YouTube. obviously if you're doing a live video, kids can take things on their screen, but even if I put it on YouTube, I can lock down people downloading it. But that's not to say a child picks up their phone and films the screen. I guess your behavior policy and your school if you find that footage, then your behavior and your policies apply just like they would physically.
I think that's a really troubling. I worked in a school where a student filmed something with a teacher. It was taken out of context, and the teacher was put in front of a tribunal for it. I think the most important thing to say with that is to know what's going on at any point with the device. Whether you have a no phone. Obviously, if you've got to bring your own device, it's a different thing. But when I was ahead, phones were such an issue for so many reasons, including recording for class and staff, that we would put them in lockers at the start of every day. It is a huge issue.
Yeah, and then it's not going to go away. And safeguarding should be a daily thing for all teachers, and online even more so. But the issue of mobile phones and kids recording and on TikTok and what have you is, it's a particular focus. I've said a lot of things are focus for my research, but social media is particularly. And it's a constant burden for schools. And I know, if I think of ASCL Research Association, school college leaders, I think the last time I checked, 94% of school leaders said they deal with online safeguarding issues on a daily basis.
So move on to the next question, Joshua Black. What extra considerations would you have for those students in SEND schools?
Well, I've worked with SEN pupils all my life. I haven't worked in a specific SEN special needs school setting. So, teaching has to be adaptive and responsive. So I guess my question back to Joshua is, could you define considerations? And that's not me wanting to kind of opt out of answering the question. It's just like to narrow down what he actually wants our opinion on, I suppose. But memory, learning needs, trying to kind of answer something specifically along that line is looking at individual people's needs, differentiation material, giving your teachers a bit of extra training and support, the second adult in the classroom. All those things make a difference. But if we're talking about a 4-year-old with ADHD or a 16-year-old with autism or a child in a wheelchair, then we've already got 3 different answers. So maybe Joshua can give me another question there in terms of how to teach, or going back to teach SEN pupils after lockdown, or doing them online. I'd be keen for a bit more information there.
Yeah, Joshua, on that, I'm going to make an assumption, Joshua, that you were talking about teaching them, because I think that question came up at a time when Ross was talking about it specifically. With SEN, obviously all teaching is relationship based, but I think in large secondaries, the relationship can get kind of lost a little, just in the same way Ross was saying earlier with teachers. But what I found when we're working with schools in the lockdown period is it's more important than ever to maintain the physical relationship as much as you can. So obviously that's not all SEN students, but even where teachers have been touching the screen or showing a favorite thing on the screen, etc., the live lessons there are huge. The live lessons in SEN are more important than anywhere else. There's so many instances I've seen of schools in secondary where people are learning better because they can just get on with it. But with SEN students, they need that anchor. They need the human being. So live lessons in those work brilliantly, but also just having those repeat items, even if the teacher's in the class and showing the book. I've seen that, and it seems to be really good practice. Next question. My question is, how can third-party companies liaise with curriculum leaders to empower each other in aiding student progress? Well, that's a big one. I'm going to go now, Ross. My planet needs me. That is a tough one, Santipur. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm a big... Another focus of my research is looking at networks, or looking at analysing how networks are built. So if you think of guided learning, for example, Leon will be able to tell you straight away how many people are in the platform, how many videos. There's a network in itself. So I'm looking at social media networks. And if you're active on Twitter, there's a channel called SLT Chat. And I created that in 2011 when I was a school leader without a forum to talk to other people about going through the same issues, when my colleagues in my own school didn't want to listen to me, or we'd all gone home and I still wanted to talk about it. And 9 years later, that channel's got 34,000 followers. It's hosted by 8 current school leaders on a Sunday night using the hashtag SLT Chat. They talk about all school issues. A lot of people observe it from a distance. I've had lots of government ministers log in the very early days to kind of talk about policy announcements. Pretty much every key organisation in England, DfE, Ofsted, large unions, those types of things, have all logged in. So I guess the answer in that respect with liaising with specific leaders is using your kind of social media tools to not sell your wares specifically, but build up a conversation first. My social media works on 4 models. People have got to like your content. They start to know you. When they like and know you, they'll trust what you say, or they'll trust your materials, and then perhaps they might part with the cash and buy your book or buy for your services. And that works physically. If I was knocking your door and saying, can you donate a couple of quid every week for Oxfam, you're probably going to say, well, I know Oxfam, but I don't know you. No thanks, not today. And if you compare that to maybe if I was your postman knocking on your door and you knew me every day and we were chatting every day, and then eventually said, oh, the post office are now selling some stamps for £1. Would you like to buy them? There's more likely you'll give me £1 because you like me, you know me, you trust me to leave your post under the flower pot when you're on holiday. And then if I'm suddenly selling a book of stamps, and perfect for time poor teachers who don't have time to go to the shops, I might give you £1. So that would be my top advice there. Build your own network.
Yeah, that was really good. I would be completely baseless to try and even answer that. So thanks a lot for that one, Ross. That makes a lot of sense. Colleagues, I just want to bring your attention, Blair, if you'd be kind enough to put up the link for Thursday's webinar as well. We're actually going to be doing a live magic show. So we've actually got a BBC presenter magician who's going to be coming on, and we're going to be doing live magic for the attendees who are coming on board.
I'd like to come to that one.
Yeah. It's brilliant. Oh, he's brilliant, Ross.
I'd like to watch that, yeah.
A few times he's developed a whole magic show, and it's just for teachers and leaders, get a bit of relief, some magic, have your mind blown, and then we'll just talk about capturing the magic in your classroom as a subtext to it in this. So yeah, if you don't mind sharing that one as well, please sign up to that one, colleagues. I hope you've enjoyed this. I know, Ross, your time, because you said you had just. Are you happy to stay a bit, buddy? But if you need to go, I'm happy to keep going through the questions on my own. But you tell me.
I'm happy to stay on the line. Otherwise, I'll have to return back to my book and start writing again. So I'll have an excuse for 10 minutes.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Okay, I'll move on to the next questions. It's private, so I won't mention the name of the person. It says, what about the context of the way information can be manipulated, and the tech is so advanced now, it becomes a major safeguarding issue? I'll be honest with you and say that is going to be an inevitability.
Well, one thing I will say, not a lot of people know that actually the UK is now world leading in terms of safer tech. So if you just look online, this person, safer tech, TECH, there's a recent paper published by the British government looking at from all sorts of social media safeguarding stuff to protecting kids. Personally, my opinion, I think we should be sharing our ID when we log into a social media platform, because it's going to, although there's a place for anonymity, when we start to think about trolls and bullying and all sorts of things, and it's hard enough for me being 46 years old, never mind if I'm 7 years old and I am being groomed. I think that'd be really important for you to look at. I think it's an issue that's not going to go away. No one's going to turn the internet off any day soon. So the sooner we embrace the tools, equip ourselves, give ourselves some training, and along the lines of safeguarding, the better for all of us. And the more we shout about it as educators and put pressure on the government in all parts of the world, the better for our society, I think.
Wonderful. Hannah Clarkson. Hannah asks, do you have any study ideas other than primary schools have developed to support a curriculum to prioritise socialisation, celebration of difference, and supporting pupils' mental health in response to current needs, i.e. ways to close the digital divide, reduce the safeguarding crisis, and close the educational gap? I mean, that is kind of that. Obviously, there's quite.
I mean, there's the relationships education guidance, which is statutory from September, but I think the government Ofsted aren't going to hold necessarily schools to account given the virus. So if you're not aware of that, Hannah, I'm sure you are, but there's lots of great guidance in there for some of the issues that you've talked about. There's loads of organisations out there, you know, I think one or two that come to mind, the Self-Esteem Team, the Digital Awareness UK, or called the Digital Sisters. There's so many organisations that can offer online support as well as physical, and tons of work being done, in terms of diversity and inclusion. So, if Hannah wants to send me an email, I'm happy to point her in one or two directions of some resources if she needs a bit of help.
Because mental health awareness is one of your special interest areas as well, isn't it, Ross?
Well, mental health of teachers, but yeah, of course that goes into pupils. But my passion's looking after the mental health of teachers, and we all suffer from the pressure of workload, external influences, logging off. But actually, when we come home from work, we log on to our devices rather than log off. But with the increase of technology within the classroom, before the virus, more and more of us are doing stuff on a device in the classroom and at the classroom, as well as having 30 kids around our feet. So I think the pressures of the job is evolving and changing, and I think that's also increasing our own mental health issues, as well as become a bit more confident talking about it. There are a lot of things that we've still yet got to fix. And think of stress as probably the number one reason why teachers leave, to the full spectrum of teacher suicide and things like that.
Thanks a lot for that, buddy. Sal Rasman asks, how do you get vulnerable parents on board with varying skills and refusal to use IT to support learning?
Well, that's a tough one. I don't know if Sal's watching in the UK, but I think the last time I checked Office for National Statistics, I think it was 92% of households have a connection. But even in televisions, I think it was 82%. So although there's some connection, not everyone has a device, whether those families are vulnerable or not, I think there's an issue of getting everyone connected online in our first, if we're talking UK specific, one of the richest economies in the world, we're still struggling with 4 million kids living in poverty. Virus aside, vulnerable parents, it's about having an outreach team to go and visit these families, give resources. And I know there's been a big issue with the government allocating laptops to families. So again, that's another huge issue. I guess, it's about digging deep and assigning certain resources within your school so that you can have a core group of people go and talk or reach or connect with these people, telephone, text messages, face-to-face at the door, virus considered. And I know there'll be people that are, my next door neighbour is an 88-year-old Italian. He does not have a mobile phone. He doesn't. He knows he knows the word email, but he's never used one in his life. And he gets on. Obviously he's a different age, and he gets on. He's very happy. But different people, different needs. I guess we'd have to understand why the parents are refusing to use ICT to support their child's learning would be the question I'd like to unpick.
Yeah, and there's a key thing there as well. So we used to do this because we had this a lot in certain schools, and one of the key things is you've just got to connect or try to connect with them first on the device or the mode that does work. So when you say go to Atom Learning, go to Wikipedia, go to Khan Academy, that's a step too far. But when you start with them in the first instance, like Ross said, with a phone call or with WhatsApp, you find it's very, very, very easy to start sharing things in a way that they're ready to respond to. So if you talk them through using Khan Academy for the first time, that helps. If you WhatsApp them different links to different things, it helps. So just look at the different elements and angles there.
Yeah, I mean, I would always go back to what I've taught myself about negotiating skills. It's not about winning; it's about meeting people on their terms and making them happy. So if I'm really into TikTok or WhatsApp, or I'm white Scottish man and I like haggis, you got to play to my needs, I suppose. So it's about being adaptive to individuals. Rather, one size fits all fits one person, doesn't fit everyone.
Perfect.
We've got that question back from Joshua post-COVID.
The last couple of questions.
So getting kids re-engaged, I guess, if we assume that all kids are back in the classroom, I think for the first few weeks, maybe a bit longer, we're going to have to just focus on well-being and mental health. And I think that's a great thing, to be honest, given that there was a real push for mental health and well-being beforehand. But if we've got a bit of leverage with league tables and Ofsted inspections, there's a real opportunity for us to generally get down deep into kids' needs and engage with families and stuff, and kind of strip back some of the nonsense that's come across our profession, where we're marking reams and reams of marking, collecting tons of data, and not much impact on does it make a difference. When actually, when we speak to kids, I'm doing a bit of research with the University of Leicester, and we're looking at anger and why kids feel angry in classrooms, and I'm bringing in some research I've done on verbal feedback with some teachers and trying to connect the two, that using the scripts that, or the techniques using the verbal feedback research to align it with this, the findings that we've discovered in anger, is what can teachers do in the classroom to support kids' emotions and mental health. So I hope we're going to get that new research commissioned in September and get on with a bit of work over the year ahead. But I think, to answer Josh's question, I don't know what your role is in school, but I'm hoping that your school gives you the kind of license to embrace a lot more kind of a virus, considering, public assemblies, mental health, well-being activities, mindfulness, breathing, those types of things, where kids can just get used to being with one another again in an environment with the pandemic, which is going to be around for quite a while soon, and about being safe physically as well as mentally.
Yeah, the huge thing for that is going to be just, and I liked what you said there, stripping back some of the things that have clouded our profession. A huge thing is just going to be back to relationships. You need to get back to building relationships, supporting relationships.
I'd say to Joshua is read the relationships education guidance from DFE if you've not had a look at that, and some just good tips in there, and might just remind us of our current purpose and kind of future agenda, given that everyone's going to, I'm in a safe, secure environment here, but I would be lying if I said I haven't had high anxiety and sleepless nights throughout this lockdown.
Yeah, it's not when no one's looking forward to COVID-20, that's for sure. So the last question will come to them, buddy. Educators are asked to video lesson to share with without being, I presume that's without being on a secure server. What would it be if educators are asked to video lesson share without being on a secure server? I think one of the things there, culturally, that's your school's responsibility. Anyone's asking you to share a video that includes you or children and not put it somewhere secure or encrypted is really setting themselves up to fail. So I don't think that's going to, no one should ask you to just share it on YouTube and put it on there unless you've got special permission to. But that would be sackable practice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, I think schools have a duty to protect their employees, and I think teachers also have a duty of care to look after their own professional identity, and that also includes your digital footprint. Yeah, 100%. Right, so any last thoughts or comments, guys? Thank you so much for joining us. I really look forward to seeing you Thursday, Ross. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed as well that you're able to pull up different places and ideas and researches, but obviously you've been teachers in such a range of ways for so long. It's really, really cool to see. I'm very proud to work with you on this course. It's going to be wonderful. We're going to help, obviously, a load more people. Thank you very much for your time and your thoughts. And yeah, colleagues, any parting words or any parting thoughts for Ross and myself is great. Please do join us on Thursday. And if you'd like to book a one-to-one to learn more about how we've done digital training, please click the link at the top of the chat. But yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad it was useful. Thank you. Thanks, really, everyone.
I always thanks, Ross.
Yeah, look after yourself and everyone keep safe and keep up the good work.
You're a gentleman. Thank you so much, buddy. I look forward to your audio dulcet tones.
Yeah, I'll get them loose and everyone's waiting. Right, bye everyone. Thank you.
Bye, Ross. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much, Blair, as well, for manning that for us and for tapping in and for helping and for going in and out. It's really, 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 really couldn't do it without you, buddy. Please do take a look at the Teacher Toolkit for Ross and see the different resources and items that he shares. And feel free to look over our stuff on Guide Education as well. It's been very enjoyable to have you all in. Thank you so much for interacting and helping, keeping things going with the questions and the ideas. And if you have any suggestions for people that you'd like us to speak to or things that you'd like us to cover, please just let us know. Really, really, we enjoy doing that, and it's a pleasure. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Elizabeth. Really, really appreciate it. Have a great evening, guys.